So glued these note cues, and welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. That, by the way, is Hungarian for many geese defeat a pig. It's an idiomatic expression about the importance of teamwork. Everyone. Maybe if they all pull together, someone will beat Red Bull. I'm Drew Scanlon. Joining me, Danny O'Dwyer. How are you, Danny?
I'm doing good. That's kind of like the Hungarian version of the 100 ducks versus a giant horse, or a giant duck against 100 horses or whatever.
Yeah, wait a minute. I've been on this podcast before.
Yeah, I like it. Geese are mean, man. Geese and swans are no joke.
They made a whole game about it.
They made a game? Oh, they did. Untitled Goose Game. You're right. A classic. One of my daughter's first ever games she saw, which really left an unfair expectation on her part for what video games were all about.
Also joining us, Rob Zachney. How are you, Rob?
Doing well. I'm thinking about that pig versus goose fight, though, and I feel like it's not terribly surprising. But you know what? The thing is, I'm a North American here. I get Canadian geese in my head, which are just enormous. And I'm like, well, of course, you wouldn't even need like that many to just demolish a pig. But I understand not all geese are as mighty as the
Created
Canadian.
equally.
One of those things could like pick up a pig and throw it off a cliff.
Pretty much. They're like condors.
Hawks do
really.
with goats.
Yeah.
Welcome to Goat Talk. If you're new to this podcast, a very warm welcome to you. And if you're new to Formula One itself, we recommend listening to our preseason primer episode. It assumes no prior F1 knowledge and explains how the sport works and who everybody is. So if you'd like to go get up to speed, you can go listen to that, episode 216. Also, this show is supported entirely by our audience over at patreon.com/shiftf1, where every month we release bonus podcasts and videos exclusively for our patrons that cover racing documentaries and films, F1 video games, experiments with other racing series, and a lot of weird things. So if you would like to support the show and get access to all that fun stuff, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1 or click the link in the show notes. What do we have going on this month, Danny?
We knew that the Gran Turismo movie was coming out next month, so Rob suggested that we kind of warm up, like we get some calisthenics going. We're a bit stiff. We need to make sure that we're kind of in the right frame of mind for that type of video game driving movie crossover. So of course, we decided to watch the 2014 classic, the movie that started a franchise, Need for Speed, starring Aaron Paul. Who else? The guy from Birdman.
Michael Keaton.
The same year Birdman came out, Michael Keaton played a sort of a what did we call him? It was a Joe Rogan,
DJ Atomica stand-in.
Yeah, DJ Atomica stand-in, like Joe Rogan meets DJ Atomica, in a movie that's it's about racing, but it's also about family. And
That'll never work.
No,
is it
that'll
though?
never work. Is
divisive episode.
Yes, a movie that is maybe underperforms in like any good racetrack. It has valleys and peaks, and the valleys are perhaps the story. The peaks are the CG-less stunts that are really make that some of the scenes in that movie very I'll rewatch that just one more time able. So if you want to check out our review of Need for Speed, only the most relevant movies being reviewed on the Shift+F1 patron feed. Thank you so much as well to all of our incredible title sponsors: Aaron Collitz, Cyphus Training, Turf SCS, Alex Medina, Kikaha of the Art, at Team Blackjack, Michael Maves, Gordy's Army, at Talking Autos, Olivia Evans, IronStation.dev, TelemetryDeck.com, FTC, Drew Stewart, Bailey Foot, Abdullah Al-Thani, Jason Chadwick, Abraham Getchell, The Space Above Us Podcast, Bunny Fiend, Snigs, Alex Goucher, Max Faltar, Circuit Demon, Troy Stammer, Umberto Roca, William Rompf, Irvine, Clinical, Research, Lachlan the Madden Man, and of course Jason Kelly. Thank you all so much for continuing to be our amazing title sponsors. I am also looking forward to the break, because during the break we usually get a little bit of a shuffle going there. Some people are like, all right, I've done my time, I'm going to back out a little bit, and then suddenly we got some new names coming in to fill those voids. So yeah, we got a couple more podcasts, this podcast, and then, am I right, after Spa, we're into the break?
We are, yeah.
Terrific.
Rob already has some predictions about what might be happening over the summer break.
Ooh.
We will get to that after we have gone through the Hungarian Grand Prix, which started started with a bang, literally.
Oh my God.
Free
Oh
practice
my
1,
God.
3 minutes in. I wonder if
Oh
Sergio Perez is going to do better this weekend.
I swear to God, like the story on everyone's lips all weekend. Christian Horner's putting his arms around Checo saying, "Don't worry about it, buddy. Daniel Ricciardo's over there. He's not going to take your seat, baby. You just be a good boy and just put this, you drive your best, okay? You get out there and you drive your..." He's on his outlap, I think. And he just rookie errors it. Like, he doesn't even get a wheel in the grass.
Slick. I think he dipped a wheel on the grass.
Dipped a wheel on the grass is a very diplomatic way of saying what he did, which is that he put half of the car on the grass and then crashed into a wall. You could not write it.
Yeah. Well, thankfully for him, they had 3 more practice sessions after that. And then qualifying, which, we had mentioned this was coming in episodes prior, but I think neglected to remind the listeners and ourselves that this is happening for Hungary. They have mapped now the hard, medium, and soft tires to Q1, Q2, and Q3. So that no more like choosing what tires you want to use for each session. You are now mandated to use the hard in Q1, medium, Q2, soft, Q3, which they are doing for sustainability reasons. I don't quite understand. For some reason, this ends up with the teams being handed 11 sets of tires as opposed to 13. And as Martin Brundle pointed out, well, why don't we just restrict it to 11 sets anyway and let them, proceed however they want?
Which is what
but
they
in any
used
case,
to do, right?
Is it?
We used to do like a little... I remember at one stage there was they all chose what tires they used. Remember, like 2 years ago, from the sets, they would all decide to take certain amounts.
Right now, prior to
they used to be able to decide
season,
what they could
prior
do with
to this
allocation, right? Yeah.
Yes, they decide what they get to do with their allocation, but they are handed on weekends that are not this. They're still all handed the same allocations. So anyway, we're trying that this weekend, and I don't know. It's like a sample size of 1, you can't really tell, but qualifying was pretty good. A fair amount of time deletions due to track limits, but pretty exciting all told, mostly because of the top 4. On pole, Lewis Hamilton by 3 thousandths of a second.
Ooh.
Very exciting.
Yeah, pulled it out.
Yes, over Max Verstappen, surprise, saying afterward that the car, trying to downplay it, like, listen, we trimmed the car for the race, not for qualifying, so it's just so happens that we're up here. Lando Norris in 3rd, followed by Oscar Piastri, the 2 McLarens on their comeback swing.
Yeah.
And speaking of overcoming some car hardship, Zhou Guanyu, 5th place, his highest qualifying of his career.
Yeah, pretty remarkable.
Really, really a great job. Charles Leclerc in 6th, the first of the Ferraris. Then Valtteri Bottas, that's right, both Alfa Romeos in Q3, both ahead of Carlos Sainz, who's down in 11th. Nothing against Carlos Sainz, just the Ferrari did not hook it up. Fernando Alonso is in 8th. In 9th place is Sergio Perez. At least he gets to Q3 this time, after, again, crashing out in FP1. And then Nico Hulkenberg in 10th. The Hulk and the Haas continuing to show strong qualifying performance. Outside the top 10, we've got Carlos Sainz in 11th and Esteban Ocon. Daniel Ricciardo on his comeback tour. He got out of Q1. We'll start the race 13th. Lance Stroll 14th. Pierre Gasly 15th. Alex Albon 16th. Yuki Tsunoda is 17th. George Russell starts 18th, having gotten mired in traffic. It's that old situation where there isn't enough space for the cars to space out before their final lap.
It was pretty bad, this one. I'm not sure if you saw it live, but it was you could see it coming a mile away because the evolution of the track that they were all kind of holding on for that last run. and he fell foul of the gentleman's agreement, where everyone who's in their position, they'll go and there'll be no overtaking, but he left a pretty big gap, and some of the other ones did too. And I think a lot of people were worried that they weren't going to get their times in, which we've seen a couple of times. And he got overtaken, I believe, by at least 4 cars, maybe a 5th, before he got away. And so by the time he actually was able to get on the gas on the start-finish straight, he was halfway through that final corner. So he just, he never had the speed going down the straight. Mm-hmm. His lap was gone before he even crossed the finish line, before he even crossed the start line. So it was a big disappointment for him.
Yeah, he said after the session that a reporter asked him, what about the gentleman's agreement that you don't pass other people? And he said, he implied that it basically doesn't exist, that he would have done the same thing. So he didn't blame the other drivers. I guess the implication being that his team shouldn't have put him in that position. But, with 20 cars on track and seeing, like you said, Danny, that evolution, everyone's going to want to go, right? So, what is the solution? I don't know. I'm not a F1 strategist.
He wasn't implying anything. He straight up said his team blew it. Like, the interview was really harsh. It was kind of a pencil snapping interview about, it included the line, I think, you get what you deserve when you don't do things the right way.
Whoa.
So he was hot when it came to where the team had placed him. I do think, though, when I looked at that and you see Hamilton start to pull away, it is kind of a big gap, and he needed to be on it. And to me, it's like, was the team getting cute with placement? Yeah, people are always trying to get cute with placement at the tail end of a qualifying like this, but also it's kind of on the driver to not let, the moment Norris is by him, he should have been on it. Like, just letting himself get swamped like that wasn't great.
Well, also not great. Kevin Magnussen in 19th, Logan Sargent in 20th, rounding out the field. Danny, do you want to take us through the start?
Yeah, so Verstappen had a good getaway. Who didn't have a good getaway was Zhou Guanyu further back, but I guess we'll talk about that in a second. The real battle everyone's watching is Hamilton and Verstappen down to turn 1. Verstappen does a great job. By the time they get down to the apex of turn 1, he has gotten the inside line, which is basically going to force Hamilton to concede that position. But following in his wake, I guess, was Oscar Piastri, who started in 4th. Managed to also get up past Norris, and also by the time they're finished with turn 1, pass Lewis Hamilton as well, up into 2nd. Hamilton will later on in the lap also be swallowed up by Lando Norris, who is speeding up with him in 3rd. So the action in the back that happened with Zhou Guanyu, so he basically had anti-stall, which meant he just had a horrific start. Got off the line slower than everyone else, and as he came down into the turn 1 braking zone, he'd already forced Gasly wide onto the grass to get an overtake move done around the outside of him on the left. But as they got down into that braking zone, Zhou Guanyu basically brakes a little bit too late, tags Danny Ricciardo, who's in front of him, who subsequently tags Ocon, who is in front of him, and unfortunately for Alpine, the driver driving around the outside of him as he is now not making the turn was the aforementioned Pierre Gasly, who had just overtaken both of those drivers. Ocon goes basically slightly airborne as he climbs along the rear right wheel of Gasly. The two of them go off into the runoff area. Ricciardo follows them, but it seems like his car didn't get really damaged too much in the front or the rear. And he continues. Both of the Alpines continue in the race, I think. I'm not sure, actually. Maybe
they kind of limp around for a little bit, but both end up pitting with terminal damage.
I think Gasly came in immediately because it was really badly busted up, and they were giving the cut engine gesture right away. But yeah, they tried to keep Ocon out there, and it wasn't going to go.
Yeah, big shame for the two of them. So bit of a nightmare for the two of them. Also a nightmare for Zhou Guanyu, who had his best qualifying, as you mentioned before. And also not a great start for Hamilton. And you could also argue for Lando Norris maybe, as his teammate got the best of him. But a great start from Verstappen on a track that does not necessarily suit these Red Bulls. Probably a good idea to throw it all in on the first turn while they have everyone going the same speed.
I think I saw this was Julian Palmer's read on the start that Joe had. He said that it looked like a software glitch to him, that the anti-stall had kicked on, that the engine had just sort of dropped it when Joe goes to put in the clutch. But to Palmer, it looked like the onboard software caused an issue that basically caused the car to flatline right before Joe is going to put in the clutch.
You can see this in the onboard video. Yeah. And you can they pipe in his radio message too. He says he has a problem with the clutch before the starting lights even go on. And you can hear it on the onboard video and see it. The rev lights start to go up, and you can hear the engine note start to go up, and then it just goes quiet. And then the lights go out, and he's like, "Oh, geez, what's happening?" Oh,
that's awful.
Yeah.
At least he got away, because that could be one of those horror situations where you get the stalled car on the grid.
Right, like the third or fourth car behind you can't see that you're stopped. They don't know why people are veering, and they just go up the back of you with these things accelerate so fast.
It's crazy, right?
The run from the back of the grid is pretty fast. The other thing, I hated this race to be honest. I was just nightmarishly bored, and I think a big part of it was we had an interesting grid.
Yeah,
this incident wipes out a lot of the interesting shuffling of the field that had happened in what was a pretty interesting qualifying. And so what is left is a lot of cars that have a really deterministic finishing order in a lot of situations. And so I do kind of feel like, I always feel like Hungary has a reputation for not throwing up great races, but I also feel like over the past several years, we've had more decent ones than bad ones here. But here we just had a case where a lot of the interesting variants that the qualifying had introduced kind of gets undone by the fact that you have this really unfortunate multi-car incident. The other thing that really struck me is looking at the sort of top-down shots of the front straight during the start, it looked to me like Ricciardo kind of crashed into the back of Ocon without too much help. But man, when you see Ricciardo's onboard, what looks like a pretty gentle, just getting a little bit under the back of him from Joe, onboard Ricciardo's car, it is a violent impact that you can just see the wheel get away from him and the car lurch. And I think it was a really vivid illustration of these cars are so heavy. It does not take that big a collision to completely render these things, undrivable for a moment.
Just a little more on this whole incident. Race Fans has some quotes from Joe and his team who still don't know what happened. Joe says, "I was holding the revs before the 5 lights and I just lost all the response from the throttle. I started basically with 0 throttle, was flat on the pedal." Alfa Romeo's head of trackside engineering, I'm going to go with Zevi Pujolar. We're still investigating what went wrong there. It looks like something with the brake system strategy caused a fail-safe on the engine side, and now we're trying to understand how that would be triggered at that point. Joe was handed a 5-second penalty and received 2 points on his super license. The stewards saying, although this was a lap 1 incident where some leeway is given to the drivers who get caught up in the middle of a number of cars, this particular incident was not one of those. Here, car 24, which is Joe, got off to a slow start and simply did not slow down enough when approaching the corner, resulting in an unnecessary collision. Which I think is harsh. But
not as bad as Bottas 2 years ago when he took out both Red Bulls. There's something about that first turn at Hungary and taking out an entire team. It's just the way that the cookie crumbles. But also to Rob's point, we talked about that year, and that year was the year that Ocon won the race, and this is like almost the inversion of that, where the first corner incident did actually make for a less interesting race as a result.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of Valtteri, all-time terrible first lap.
Yeah.
Like he has to evade the incident unfolding. The Joe's sort of triggered here, but man, the rest of that lap is a nightmare. He just plummets.
Yeah.
I think like 5 cars overtake
Team
him.
solidarity, Rob. He felt bad for Joe. He was wanted to keep him company back there.
It's brutal to watch because it was just imagine if you're Alfa Romeo, right? Like this is your car's not that great, but this track appears to whatever reason, the heavens are smiling on you and your car's strengths line up really well with it. Both your guys qualify great, and this happens, and Joe, maybe this was a bit unavoidable just because of like how compromised that launch was, but like Valtteri, crumbling over the course of that first lap is just demoralizing. It's fun, mullet and redneck Valtteri era. Like, yeah, we all love that, but man, also further evidence that this is maybe not the guy in the high pressure situation.
Wow, shots fired. Ocon, for his part, after he was popped up into the air and dropped to the ground, broke his seat on the impact.
Kidding.
Also, this quote is from Race Fans. I just completely dropped in the car, and I thought it was the rear suspension that was broken because the car was handling terribly, obviously after that much damage. But no, it was actually that the seat had broke, which changed my position.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Had it come
he
loose?
was taken for medical checks, but I guess he was okay.
Wow.
But yeah,
that's a new one. I've never heard that before. I wonder if that's a safety issue. Like if you had a crash and the seat was broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else from that first lap, Danny?
Just what I mentioned earlier about Lando later on. I think it was on turn 5. It was in that little complex at the back part of the middle of sector 2. He got past Hamilton. Hamilton was on the radio pretty soon after that, basically apologizing to his wall for the start that he had, which is fair enough. He got caught out. Like obviously Max defended hard, but yeah, I think the Norris overtake is the one that he'll feel particularly smart about, I guess.
Yeah, because that Piastri move was amazing. Like he read it so well. If you go and look at his onboard, like he just saw that, okay, those guys are going to be over there. I'm going to take a different line and just cut this apex and just sweep around. He wasn't in danger, I think, of passing Verstappen, but he got right up there.
He did, and he also managed to get the gas, on the floor, get his foot on the floor without losing any traction really well on like a tricky turn. Like that turn's a weird, first turn. If you take it sharp like that, you can, put yourself in a dodgy position, especially with the run down into turn 2. But he was perfectly positioned and almost knew exactly what he was doing. Like it looked like one of those, like, if this window opens, if, Verstappen defends hard on the outside against Hamilton, this is what I need to do. And obviously he had the benefit of seeing it all play out in front of him, which Hamilton doesn't, right? He doesn't know what's going on behind him, really. So it's a bit more of a crapshoot when you're in that position. But yeah, it was a great overtake, and great overtake by Verstappen as well. But it wasn't as like he ran away into the distance here either.
Yeah, I mean, the McLarens do kind of stick with him for a little bit. Perez, having gotten to Q3, but still starting a fair distance away from Verstappen, starts his attack on lap 6 on Alonso for 7th place at the turn 1 and 2 complex, which has the interesting feature of having one DRS detection point, but 2 zones in which to deploy it. So at first he can't make it happen, but 2 laps later, after he's had a chance to recharge those batteries, gets by into turn 1 and gets the bonus of DRS in the 2nd zone for good measure. Lap 18, the front of the field starts to pit with Norris coming in from 3rd behind his teammate Piastri, who pits on the next lap and comes out behind Norris. So McLaren effectively undercuts their own driver.
Yeah, that was a shame. I think, I didn't follow up on this after the race, but there was definitely questions of, usually the car who is the lead car has the option of whether or not they come in first or not. And I guess they didn't necessarily know. And we also, with these new tires, and they've, needing to get like a lap under them before they're up to speed. It's not like the undercut 3 years ago where it was basically dead on that if you came in first that you would be able to get the jump on the person if you're hugging their rear wing. But yeah, it was a big shame, I think, because like that was one of the fun things, was seeing Piastri in a position where he was holding his own, and if he's overtaken on merit, that's one thing, but to be overtaken in that way, I think, was just a little disappointing, especially because it was like a strategy call that basically made it happen.
Yeah, it was close. And he said after the race that he was having, in particular, really bad tire degradation
Right.
compared to Lando Norris, especially with the heat. So maybe that could have been a factor. And also, I think Norris just had a blistering out lap. I think he set the fastest lap when he came out of the pits.
Yes, and I mean, if Piastri's having bad deg, then he should be coming in first, right?
Yeah, I guess. Lap 20, Leclerc, trying to stem some of Ferrari's bleeding, gets by Stroll for 8th with the help of DRS into turn 2. Perez isn't making Ferrari's job any easier as he passes Sainz into turn 1 with DRS for 6th place on lap 27. And a lap later, he makes a move on Russell, who proves a little trickier to pass. But Perez does get by him down the inside of turn 2. Russell trying to fight back, and it may have something to do with the camera angle, but I definitely like sucked in air through my teeth as it looked like Russell just barely backed out in time to avoid an accident. But
it sure looked like their tires were like interleaved for a second there.
Yeah, it was way close. Perez tries to get past Hamilton on lap 42, but can't quite do it and pits soon thereafter. Anybody have anything in that space there, 27 to 42?
Nope. It was one of those races. It was
yeah.
It felt like a tire strategy race, and especially with a two-stopper, you were kind of like holding your breath for that middle part of the race to see how it all shook out, because there wasn't that much overtaking in those spots. Like you said, we had an out of position Perez, who by that stage was kind of the last out of position car there was. Like if Bottas and Zhou had been, closer to where they were at the start of the race, you would have had a bit more action there. If Verstappen hadn't got the jump, maybe there'd be a bit more action there. Leclerc was just having a hard one. Like Sainz was making his way up, but Leclerc, was having a bit more trouble. And then I think it's around this time he has the bad pit incident, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lap 44, he pits from 5th, locks up at the pit speed limit line, drifts over it, earning himself a speeding penalty of 5 seconds. He does, however, undercut his teammate, Carlos Sainz, who rejoins behind him in 8th and now has to keep within that 5-second margin to potentially jump Leclerc after his penalty is applied. Lap 47, Perez is still on his sightseeing tour through the field and attacks Oscar Piastri around the outside of turn 1. Piastri fights back by pushing Perez wide. Perez, though, gets ahead before turn 2, and while Piastri does continue to fight, going onto the grass, he can't quite retake the place, and Perez seals 4th position.
That was a good battle, but you can always tell that it's Perez when somebody ends up on the grass a little bit. He always leaves just that little bit less than everyone else in terms of a car's width. But he didn't need to. He had that turn, and he could have.
I think McLaren even asked Piastri, like, did Perez push you off?
Yeah,
they tried leading the witness.
Yeah, exactly. They tried. They did a good effort trying to make that happen, but that's not gonna happen.
He said something like, "Yeah, he didn't leave me much space."
Sure, yeah, I guess.
Lap 50, Hamilton pits for medium tires with 20 laps to go and comes out in 5th, hoping to challenge for the podium places. And it starts out well. He gets by Piastri for 4th on lap 57 into turn 1 with DRS. Perez, though, in third, is over 6 seconds up the road, and despite some wishful thinking by David Croft, he can't quite close that gap. Hamilton's teammate Russell, though, having started in 18th, has closed up to Carlos Sainz with 5 laps to go and breezes by him on the straight with DRS for 7th place. And crucially, gets under 5 seconds to Leclerc, so he also inherits 6th place once Leclerc's penalty was applied. And with that, Verstappen wins, setting the all-time record for the team with most wins in a row at 12. And it's hard to see Red Bull stopping before, 25?
Yeah, they did it. There was a degree of inevitability around it. Good to see Lando on the podium again, though. He's getting used to it. I want to mention one other thing that happened in the race, because it reminded me of a driver that I feel like we have barely talked about all year, which was Logan Sargent spinning sort of randomly in the slow part of Sector 2. A weekend to forget for him, but a season to forget for him. It's not been wonderful, I feel. I'm struggling to remember any weekends where
it's tough when your teammate Alex Albon is really tearing it up.
Yeah, he really is. It's yeah, but even I feel like I just never hear from him or see him or anything. You know what I mean? Like Logan Sargent
Beyond the Grid episode.
Yeah, I guess I should listen to that. Get my recommended daily allowance of.
He's American, Danny. You're American.
I guess that is technically accurate. He is American, and I am technically also one of those. But look, he's not on the podium. If you're not on the podium, you can't break Max Verstappen's trophy. So,
it's true. We will get to that. But yeah, let's run down the field or the results here. Max Verstappen wins the race. Lando Norris in second time in a row. Did he get second last time? Am I crazy?
Lando? Yeah, he did.
Sergio Perez also on the podium, having started 9th, doing some work to come back from his cold streak.
Like, let's be honest, this was an absolute nightmare of a weekend, a roller coaster for Perez, because it couldn't have started off worse. And arguably, he did a fantastic drive. Like, I'm not sure if he got driver of the day or anything, but he probably should have, because like some of those overtakes were, kind of meaty, and he, it's not like Verstappen was disappearing into the distance either, but Perez did manage to,
and George Russell and Oscar Piastri, like, not exactly pushovers.
Yeah, they were. Although Hamilton on Piastri
hard to pass on.
Was a bit of a push. Hamilton getting past Piastri was pretty sad to look at. I think Piastri was done by that stage.
Yeah, perhaps with that tire deg.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton 4th, Oscar Piastri 5th, George Russell 6th. That is a Mercedes beating both Ferraris from 18th place.
Wow.
Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz in 7th and 8th, respectively. Fernando Alonso in 9th, Lance Stroll in 10th, Aston Martin not so much in the picture recently, especially with McLaren's resurgence, though perhaps things will be different at Spa. Who can say? Alex Albon, just outside the points, driving the wheels off of that Williams, having started 16th. Valtteri Bottas in 12th. Daniel Ricciardo in 13th, not too shabby for his first time back in the AlphaTauri, 2 spots ahead of his teammate. Nico Hulkenberg 14th, Yuki Tsunoda in 15th. Zhou Guanyu 16th, Kevin Magnussen 17th, Logan Sargent with a technical DNF had that spin with a few laps to go, and they just brought him into the pits. And then not classified were the 2 Alpines of Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. And that was Hungary. Are you full of Hungary?
I am no longer Hungary. I don't know what it was, man. I think, I guess what Rob said. We had a bit of an interesting shuffle, and then that was it. We just
no payoff. Yeah,
it didn't really pay off.
I mean, it's great seeing the McLarens up there. It's like they're, I don't know, they've taken over the Ferrari spot of third best for the time being.
I also worry that we had like a good run of races with mixed weather conditions. I'm wondering if we're seeing the season as it truly is in a race like this. You know what I mean? We're not getting that little bit of Bernie Eccleston sprinkler action that's sort of like spicing it up a little bit.
Well, we'll see about the weather when we get to Spa.
Oh boy.
Maybe things will change.
One can only
Let's
hope.
take it to the news. Rob, you've picked some choice cuts here
Ooh.
about both Alpine and McLaren. Let's start with Alpine.
Yeah, so there's a couple things there. One is that apparently there are discussions happening among the F1 like leadership and team principals regarding a measure to equalize engines. Remember, like prior to the new engines being introduced, we are in an engine freeze period, and it's sort of been, it's been coming on for a number of years. We're in a period where the teams really can't improve their engines. They can do some things for reliability, but they're really restricted in what they can do. And Christian Horner gave an interview where he basically explained what, some of what's going on here, and arguing that, Red Bull's going to support the move to help slower teams catch up. And I guess the team that is at issue here is Alpine. There's a quote here. I'm quoting Autosport's article on the situation. It is understood that the move has been prompted by concerns that the Renault engine, which is used by Alpine, has fallen behind rivals and could be as much as 30 horsepower down on the best.
Ooh.
While not confirming any figures, Alpine team principal Omar Safnauer has admitted the French manufacturer is adrift of the opposition, which is hampering its competitive fortunes. Interestingly enough, like Horner's position on this is kind of, we all need to get behind this because, this isn't an era where the engine is supposed to be a competitive battlefront. It's not supposed to be an issue where any team is at a disadvantage on power. The way it's been in other areas where like everyone designs a new engine and to the victor go the spoils. The entire premise for this era was that we need to keep our engine vendors in the sport. They all need to contribute enough engines for the grid, but the engine is no longer supposed to be a space where people are competing to build the best engine. They're supposed to basically be, performance-wise, almost interchangeable between the teams. So in the spirit of these rules, to Horner, it seems pretty self-explanatory that you'd probably want to effectively hamstring everybody's engines but Renault's. And, bring the whole field down a little, rubber band the whole field back a little bit to help the Renault catch up. So we'll see what the rest of the team principals decide, but this is one of those moments where it's kind of putting to the test some of the cooperation that exists among the teams because, this was part of the deal for this, for controlling costs in the closing years of this engine era. And laying the groundwork for the next one. So if Renault have got it wrong somehow, it does make a degree of sense that you kind of have to tune everyone's engines down so that Renault's not in so that Alpine is not in such a rough situation. And I guess they're other cars.
Well, speaking of being in a rough situation at Alpine, what are your theories here, Rob?
No one's having a rougher time than this guy, it seems.
Whenever I see a headline that says Alpine F1 boss, Alpine F1 team boss Safnauer trusts Renault chief De Meo to give him time, I'm like, well, that man is dead. And so we talked about this, I think, last week, that there was a reshuffle at Alpine, where there was a new head of motorsport operations placed above Safnauer and below Laurent Rossi. And at the time I was like, that just doesn't seem like a great sign, right? That, a second ago you were reporting directly to the head of the company, and now here's a new guy that you report to. Not a stranger, not hired from elsewhere, but still like sort of slotted in above you. So here is Safnauer's gloss on this. And I'm just going to read Safnauer's words, and you can just tell me how you interpret this. It's a bit of a long quote, but I think there's a lot to it. You got to remember that Laurent is doing special projects now, said Safnauer, and asked by Autosport about the impact of Rossi's move. Yes, he did hire me, but Luca De Mayo also hired me, and it was Luca who ultimately sat down with me and convinced me to join his project. And the project was that the Alpine project with the 100 race plan, and I think we are 30 something races into that, so we still have some 60 odd races to go, and that is another 3 years to go to start winning. It takes time. It has taken everybody time. I know Luca is a man of his word, and he gave me his word on 100 races to start winning. And sometimes you take a half step backwards to take 2 steps forward. So I have no concern that Luca will be true to his word and give me the 100 race time that is required.
He wouldn't lie. He's not a liar. He's not a dirty liar. He wouldn't be a dirty liar who'd go back on his word. Like,
would you, Luca? Would you?
Would you, Luca? You wouldn't be one of those bad liars. He's really I don't know, prepping the, the trying to make sure that he doesn't go that way. I don't know. It's one of those, I never know what happens. I know we're entering silly season and this is where a lot of this stuff goes down, and it's been remarkably unsilly so far for the past, kind
the
of
exception of Ricardo.
This whole season. Yeah, I guess, yeah, well, except Ricardo. That's fair. Up until that, there was nothing, but there's a couple of places. There's here and if there hadn't already been so much tumult at Ferrari prior to the season starting, I would have also maybe pointed over there a little bit, but
Well,
I don't know.
And last year, I mean, Alpine was ground zero for the silliness.
Yeah.
And this quote from Alpine reminds me a lot of when he was sort of in denial that Piastri was just going to ghost them like that.
Yeah.
That I thought Oscar was a man of his word. I thought,
you're right.
Like, what sport do you think you were in here? And also, like, everybody's word is conditional on this can't seem like there's a lot of screw-ups happening. And it seems like there's a lot of screw-ups happening. Now, I am of the opinion, I've never fully gotten over this, I'm of the opinion that Cyril maybe deserved a little more time back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, in a lot of ways, I look at this and I'm like, does it feel like this team has gotten on a better trajectory since Cyril was in place? Though I've never totally understood what happened with Cyril and Danny, right? Like what happened with Renault and Ricardo. Did Ricardo read the writing on the wall that there's going to be upheaval and bail, or was him leaving kind of the knife in a bit of wool that
I think that maybe
made the team made the organization realize things were a mess. Yeah, I don't know, but I think if Safnauer comes up short here, if he gets shown the door, to a degree, the way things have unfolded, I'm not entirely sure that would be a bad move, but also it kind of just seems like this organization might be in disarray, and it might be this Luca De Mayo that is kind of being put in place and empowered to see what he can do about sorting it out, because the program kind of seems nowhere.
Do you think that this new round of investment will impact this? That, like, the new money coming in, more mouths to feed,
the real money, not the fake Rob Reynolds and
Ryan
Reynolds. I don't.
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think the way it was positioned was that they kind of they like having these new partners invested for some expanded operations and branding deals, but it didn't feel like a transformative partnership in any way. It kind of felt like just wanting some investment injection into an organization that famously has always kind of been shoestring for one connected to a major manufacturer.
Yeah. Publicly owned.
Well, speaking of cleaning up messes, the final news item here.
Danny, we forgot to hit on this in our recap in the incident between Lando Norris popping a bottle of champagne and Max's first place porcelain trophy. Who do you think was at fault? Because Max said that Lando said Max just left that trophy too close to the edge, and that's why Lando ended up knocking it off.
Lando was just being like pure lad about this whole thing. He was just like being like taking absolutely zero responsibility, sort of knowing that he obviously this is his fault. He like accidentally he went for the. There's lots of ways to open a bottle of champagne. Lando likes to go for the smack the bottom of the bottle on the table or on the podium sort of style of it.
It does look really cool.
It does look cool, but it's definitely a high risk maneuver because you can also break the bottle. I mean, it's a Magnum. It's not going to, explode probably or shatter. But yeah, unsurprisingly, these weird little trophies. Max Verstappen's like probably running out of space to put all these weird things, especially after this season. And I think Lando did him a favor. He just smashed it so he doesn't have to bring it home, regardless of how expensive it probably was.
Would you like to know how expensive it was?
I would love to know how expensive it was, Rob.
So again, coming from Autosport Quotes, a Hungarian journo who was on Twitter saying, so those trophies are made by the Hungarian porcelain manufacturer. All of these are handmade.
Wow.
Production time is approximately 6 months. And each of these costs approximately 40,000 euros.
Oh my God. Wow.
Oh boy.
Well,
so this is one of the nicer F1 trophies, right?
It is.
Like,
Yeah.
it has actual character. It feels like it's of a place.
It's it looks like a big vase.
Yeah, and it's cool. And if Lando ends up steering us toward a world where we're gonna get more shitty Heineken stars, then damn him. But it is very funny how this played out. That like he does this at the only circuit where there's a highly breakable trophy. Like all of these look like they could get, a lot of them look like they're a little spindly. They could maybe be damaged, but like it's, as you said, Drew, it's a porcelain vase. There's only one. There's only one circuit that's like, here, we're gonna put a $40,000 piece of porcelain out for a celebration with 3 dudes running high on adrenaline, all between the ages of like 20 and 40.
so it looks like it only broke. How much of it did it break? Did it shatter? It looks like only the bottom came off, maybe.
Oh, really? Because it took a header. I was surprised when I saw the video.
Yeah.
How bad it looked. Like I was like, oh, he probably just knocked it off, but it like plummets.
It falls, but it only actually breaks the bottom off the top. So you could
Did you find a picture of like what the battle?
Yeah, I
damage was?
found it here.
Okay.
I'll send it to you guys. It's it looks like it just like took the top part came off maybe actually a chunk of one of the sides. Oh no, actually yeah, there's a couple of bits broken on this thing. But I will also say it's a nice vase, but it also just has this gaudy like Formula 1 first place written on the side of it, which looks like trash. So
yeah, no. I mean, it's kind of like it costs 40,000 euros, but it's kind of like, you can make a Richard Mille watch like cost whatever, right? But like, does it look it, or is this just kind of a big number you attach to something?
Exactly.
Which is really a lot of what F1 sponsorship often comes down to. So I'm kind of with you. Like,
this one's got a story,
nice, but
right? Now
it's not,
now there's a story behind it.
Well,
So
that's
what's
kind
that
of
stuff
what
you
I
can-
think.
yeah.
It's
what's
like
that,
when
stuff you can brush on that like is kind of golden and like can restore pottery or like put it back together.
The Philosopher's Stone? I don't know. What is
mustard.
this? Mustard.
I think in 20 or 30 years, when this trophy gets auctioned off for something, it's going to go for a lot because people will remember this story. Oh,
Yes.
remember Lando Norris? What a great F1 driver. It was one of his first few podiums, and he
Totally.
knocked over Max Verstappen's trophy and it broke. And you can see it's all glued back together, but it's got history to it. Remember
Exactly.
this? Yes, I remember that. I'm going to pay many millions of dollars for it.
Exactly. Is it like what is the Liberty Bell? Is that what's the broken bell?
Mhm. Yes.
No, that's just
Would people
as with many things in this country. That's just a piece of shit we're stuck with because there's some like dumb story attached to it. Yeah, the Liberty Bell. They were so excited. They were ringing the bell and it cracked because they were ringing in the Declaration of Independence.
see? It's got a story. You break something, it's better. It's like when Banksy shredded that piece of art after someone bought it. Like that's real art, man.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so here's what I think Red Bull should do. Kintsugi is the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery but mending the areas of breakage with lacquer dusted or mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum.
Oh.
The method is similar to the maki-e technique, As a velocity treats breakage and repair as part of the history of an object rather than something to disguise. But yeah, I think this is one of those things where like you put it back together, make the repairs visible, and then you display it at the Red Bull headquarters with like maybe like in a museum, like a button that you can press that like will play a video of when Lando fucked up that trophy.
All right. Well, we have we got another race right around the corner. The last one of the first half of the season. Danny, introduce us to Spa.
Spa-Francorchamps. Welcome, friends, to the Ardennes Forest in Belgium for one of the most beloved Formula One races of this and any year. If you're new to Formula One, Spa is a special track, not only because sometimes it rains so much there we don't actually do a race but still declare a winner, but also because it's a incredibly long lap that goes up and down and around and seems to sometimes have weather on one end of the track that does not exist in other parts of the track. In more recent history, it is also tragically a race where we have lost two young drivers, one only a matter of weeks ago, on the newly changed first couple of turns up a hill. Eau Rouge is the name that people give this a lot. Radion is actually the name of the hilly part. Eau Rouge is just like a little stream that runs underneath the first part of the base of this hill. It's Eau Rouge means red water. Radion I think means like a steep path. And that's the area that they have reprofiled in recent years, but unfortunately has still taken the lives of some young drivers. So the jury's out on what exactly is going to happen there. This track, though, is incredibly historic. It was first laid ground in 1921. So this is before there was wars happening in this part of Europe and in this particular forest, in fact. It was 14.9 kilometers back then. It was also part of the inaugural Formula One season in 1950. It was redeveloped in 1979 and was, over halved in distance to the current 7 kilometer or 4.25 mile circuit. Not the exact same profile it was back then, but similar to it. Due to its length, we do not have that many laps around this one. It's not like Hungary. There's only 44 laps around Spa. It's got a lot of long straights and a lot of fast corners, so we expect the Red Bulls to feel right at home here. Not that they didn't in Hungary in the end. The weather here is obviously super interesting, not just because of the breadth of the track and how much ground it covers, but also because the lower parts of the track at the back end of Sector 2 and the start of Sector 3 are essentially in a valley, so you're getting a lot of relief rain as it comes over into that valley and also comes over the hill on the other side. And yeah, it's just one of those tracks that if you're watching this on television for the first time, you'll have a pretty good idea of it from the television because so much of the track looks unique. Obviously, Eau Rouge and Radion being the sort of most eye-catching part. Apparently, if you go there in person, that's kind of the place you want to get a seat as well, so you can see them making the drive up the hill from the very tight turn one. Loads of history here. Practically every part of this track you can remember some incidents, some overtaking, hard braking. There's a chicane near the end, which is always a lot of fun, off camber, uphill. Lots of swooping turns in Sector 2. There's, a sort of a more traditional Tilke-esque right-hand, left-hand 90-degree sort of sector at the start of Sector 2. This track has, 20 turns, 19 turns in it, and they're all interesting and unique. And I think that's a large part of the reason why people like this track, even if there's definitely a shadow hanging over certain parts of it in recent years.
Yeah, well said, Danny. Well, you had mentioned the microclimates here, and boy, they seem to be out in force this weekend.
Wonderful.
We do have this is a sprint weekend.
Ooh.
So we've got stuff happening all across the weekend. Friday, and honestly, it's pretty similar across the board here. Friday at qualifying time, 5 p.m. local, 64 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 Celsius. Wind 9 miles an hour or 14 kilometers an hour. And again, that's kind of consistent across the weekend. Maybe picks up a little bit wind speed over the course of the weekend. But precipitation, the one everyone wants to hear. Qualifying, we've got 82%.
Oh boy. That's
sprint day, we've got 88%.
Wow.
And race day, 47.
okay.
So also, beside Friday and Saturday here, I have a lightning bolt icon.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like 88% might be the highest I have ever heard, because we do this podcast on a Tuesday. So,
Yeah.
like, it's never that nailed on. But, like, 80%, I mean, it's going to rain. That just means it's not a case of whether or not it's going to rain when the race is on. It means it's going to be a wet track, at the very least.
Or that means there may as well just be a bunch of question marks.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's, it's so tough to predict in such a variable climate like this.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, should be interesting. Heading into the race, our driver standings look like this. Max Verstappen is on top with 281 points. Sergio Perez, his teammate, holding station in second with 171. Fernando Alonso still in third place with 139. Lewis Hamilton closing fast with 133. George Russell's in fifth with 90. Carlos Sainz in sixth with 87. Charles Leclerc has 80. Lando Norris has 60. Also rocketing up the standings.
Yeah.
Lance Stroll is in ninth with 45. Esteban Ocon in 10th with 31. Then we've got Piastri with 27 in 11th. Pierre Gasly with 16. Alex Albon with 11. Nico Hulkenberg with 9. Valtteri Bottas in 15th with 5 points. Zhou Guanyu has 4. Tsunoda and Magnussen both are tied with 2. And then Logan Sargent, Daniel Ricciardo, and Nick DeVries with 0.
One of those is not going to get a point.
No, I don't think so. Red Bull Racing is, of course, on top with 452 points. Mercedes is in second with 223. Aston Martin still in third with 184. Ferrari is in fourth with 167, and McLaren is in fifth with 87. Alpine's in sixth with 47. Williams and Gene Hazen team tied with 11 points. Alfa Romeo's in ninth with 9, and Alpha Tauri's got 2. If you would like to join the standings yourself, you could do so in our fantasy league using the link in the show notes. The top 3, the podium sitters from the Hungarian Grand Prix are in third place, highly sought after seat. In second place, Maximum Verstappen.
Yeah, love it.
And number 1, censored by the FIA. With asterisks.
Sure.
That's what it says.
Why not?
But overall, we have in third place, Oberhof Racing. In second place, paying the Stroll toll. And in first place, Lotus Begin, gentlemen.
Okay, sure. We got a Lotus fan there.
It's a deep cut.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you can also send us an email, shiftf1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. You can also hit us up on the socials, such as they are, using the links in the show notes. That's us around the internet. Should we take it around the world, Denny?
Let's race around the world. Yeah.
The F1 Academy is racing at everyone's favorite circuit, Paul Ricard.
Oh, God. How dare you, sir? How dare you? Oh, my God.
Oh, man. There's a World Superbike Championship is doing their Czech round at maybe my new favorite circuit name.
Okay.
Autodrome Most.
Most. Oh, my God. Wow. There are autodromes, but none of them quite as much as that one.
That sounds like a nickname other autodromes might give their friend when they're not around. Like, oh my God. Like, does it have to be the most autodrome all the time?
Just keeps droming on and on. Formula E is in London this weekend for the London E-Prix. Formula 2 and Formula 3 will be supporting Formula 1 at Spa this weekend.
Man, there's a lot of Spa. There's going to be a lot. That means there's going to be 6 races to watch this weekend. I mean, there was last weekend too. There was 5, so it's pretty good.
Yeah. We've got those Craftsman trucks this weekend in Richmond, Virginia at the Richmond Raceway, the Richmond Raceway.
Waste race. What?
For the Worldwide Express 250.
Worldwide.
Yeah, maybe Pitbull's going to be there. The NASCAR Xfinity Series is in Road America.
Road America.
At Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin.
What prefecture is that in, Drew?
Red,
white, and blue.
For the Road America 180.
Sure.
The Repco Supercars are in Sydney.
Is that
for the... Oh, I have no idea how to pronounce this sponsor. Bo Repairs? Is that what it is?
Try doing an Aussie accent. It'll be easier, probably.
Bo Repair.
Bo Repair.
Bo Repair.
Bo Repair.
It's very difficult for me. I don't know why. Oh my God. Speaking of things I can't pronounce, the Motocross Grand Prix of Finland is this weekend at Hyvinkan Vahutispuisto.
Oh my God.
In Hyvinkää, Finland.
Hell yeah. We're in the land of the sun don't set at the moment, I bet, up
That's
there.
Right.
Yeah.
We got NASCAR.
Oh yeah.
Also at Richmond out with them trucks.
Ooh, yeah.
For the Cookout 400.
Oh, that's good. Is that just sponsored by the concept of having a cookout?
I think so.
Nice.
You just put some shrimp on the barbie.
I think we spent too much time together because I was literally about to say the exact same thing in the same accent. Oh no.
And Formula One. Formula One this weekend. It's a sprint weekend, everyone. Be careful out there. Friday, July 28th, free practice 1 is the only, that is true. The only free practice is at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time on ESPN2, followed by qualifying at 11 a.m. On ESPN2. Qualifying for the race, remember. Then we've got the sprint shootout, which is qualifying for the sprint on Saturday, July 29th at 6 a.m. on ESPN2, followed by the sprint itself at 10:30 a.m. on ESPN2. And the race, everyone, Sunday, July 30th at 9 a.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Cool. I like it. I like the sprints that they've been fun. The drivers don't really know what to do yet when they're forced to get down a quali lap. You could argue that the same happened in Hungary with the tire allocation stuff, where it just kind of threw them off their usual rhythm in practice even that little bit more, where they had to try and get in quali laps on the hard tires and figure out more stuff than they usually have to, which does seemingly tend to mix up that grid. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to this one. Between the sprint and the weather, the one thing I'm just worried about is that we just don't have any crashes. Which I feel like is a specter that is now, kind of unique to Spa. Maybe Jeddah is the other one where I go in with my teeth clenched a little bit, but
yeah,
Spa's definitely, feeling that way a bit. But yeah, I who knows? Knock on wood. But this could be a fun race. It would be great to have a really solid race before we have the break, I think.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's going on this weekend. What happened today, Danny, in history?
Oh, today? Oh, you mean today, yes. But in the past.
Antiquity.
Let's start that again. Italian driver Antonio Ascari. Oh, God. Fucking hell, this is not a great omen. Italian driver Antonio Ascari was killed on this day in 1925 while leading the French Grand Prix in his Alfa Romeo P2 at the Autodrome de Monterrey near Paris. Ascari left behind Jesus, this is grim. I guess I don't get to choose these, but trigger warning if you've children. Ascari left behind a 7-year-old son, Alberto, who also went on to become a famous Grand Prix driver and died in mysteriously similar circumstances to his father.
Oh my God.
I know, this is such a bummer. I'm so sorry, everyone. Both died on the 26th day of the month, aged 36, and both drove car number 26. Both had won 13 Grand Prix and both died 4 days after surviving previous accidents. They both left a wife and 2 children. I hope this next paragraph, these always come in 2 paragraphs. I'm hoping this next paragraph is a little bit sunnier.
Bring it back, Danny. Bring it back.
Okay. When Mika Hakkinen, oh thank God. Okay. Mika's okay, right? Mika's fine? Okay. Stepped down from his race seat at McLaren for the sabbatical year in 2002, many speculated as to whether he would return to racing. Well, today in 2002, the Flying Finn announced to the world that he would not be returning to the cockpit. He said, "I didn't want to hurt myself. I've been through so much in my career in F1, particularly in 1995, and I did achieve so much that I thought that it's not worth it anymore to push your luck further." So there you go. A tale of 2, I guess, 2 careers.
Fates?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I remembering was it Hakkinen who had the absolutely terrible crash where he almost died on the side of the track? I don't know why this is. I'm trying to remember who it was, who the doc went out and basically it's just I know this, but it's just this blank spot. Do you guys, Rob, is there
I don't know what you're talking about.
anything ringing a bell?
Adelaide 1995 appears
maybe
to
that's
be
what
the one they're talking about.
Is that when he had that bad crash?
Yeah, I'm trying to see.
I remember
Just if you look up like Hakkinen like scary accident, Adelaide 95 is the one that they talk about.
is the one that comes up. Okay, I'll have to remember. Yeah. Apologies that I don't remember exactly what it was, but I always get, who's the other Finnish driver from that era that there's one of them I always get mixed up with Mika. I don't know why.
Kimi Räikkönen.
Oh, yeah, no. At Adelaide 95, they had to do a trach.
Yes, that's it. That's the
Whoa.
incident. Yeah. No, it was a really serious. Yeah. It's one of the sort of. I feel like it was if I'm remembering correctly, it was like the one post Senna accident that was like very, 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 very serious.
Yeah, launched into barriers at 200 kilometers, and yeah, just a full bore accident.
Yeah. So I guess that's why that's what he was referring to there. Yeah, I thought I remembered. I couldn't exactly. Thanks, Rob. Yeah. So we
got to end this podcast.
We do. Yeah, I know. Especially
too heavy.
Yeah, especially with Spa coming up. I feel like I don't like tempting fate. Yeah. Hopefully it's a fun race and we everyone gets around okay. I think if nothing else, everyone has their, for better or for worse, I guess everyone has their eyes sort of, with Jeddah as well. People are maybe a little bit more cautious at the top of that hill than they were a couple of years back.
Well, as we look forward to Spa then, Danny, why don't you give us some final thoughts here and maybe, I don't know, talk about Need for Speed. That's going to be fun. If you're a patron out there, listen to our Need for Speed episode.
Yeah.
Literally the first 20 minutes of that is about a fiery death.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. It's, like most of these movies, I feel like you have to establish, like having driving movies, that's basically what they're about, which is fair. They're about.
Okay, look, the fiery death in Need for Speed is kind of funny.
It's awesome.
That's the thing. Like it's a hell of a stunt, and also it is the most like, hey, the movie is very clear about like one of these characters is going to die soon. So you
kind of know what's going to happen to him. Pretty early. But yeah, the stunts in that race are pretty badass. As for this weekend, I'm really looking forward to it. Spa is such a beautiful track. The drivers really love it. It's I always like watching the lower formulas on this track too. Hungary was an interesting race for Formula 2 and Formula 3, but you tend to get loads of overtaking at Spa because in those lower formulas, just because the straights are so long and they can draft up behind each other, and you get a lot of these like 3 wide on the Kemmel straight kind of situations as well. So I think it'll be interesting. I do wonder if there's that much rain going on, we could have a red flag, we could have a safety car start situation. We haven't had one of those in a while. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But it feels like a lot could happen this weekend. Hopefully we get some good racing out of it, if nothing else.
Yeah. Final thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, I don't know what to expect from this race. The thing is, as much as I love Spa and I love Spa to pieces, I think it's one of the last tracks of its era and kind. The races kind of sucked for like 2 or 3 years running.
Yeah,
and it like there's something about it. It feels like just in this era, the race has not generated much interesting competition. Who knows what was it? 21 where it got rained out. Where that might have been an interesting race, but it just didn't unfold because they couldn't get ahead of the weather situation. But something about the race and the current like spec of the cars and the competitive balance is just not generated a lot of interesting racing in F1. At least that's not been true of like sports cars by any stretch of the imagination, but this is sort of a signature race for F1 and yet has also been kind of a dull procession at a track that really has a reputation for generating a lot of iconic moments. So I'm curious how this race unfolds, and also I'm very curious of if they start getting mixed conditions or like heavier rain, how are they going to handle it? Because I think at this point they have to be terrified.
Yeah.
Of like they're due to recent history, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Nobody wants 2021 again.
True.
Where they just don't race and they're just stuck there in a permanent hold for the weather, and they can't clear the track. But at the same time, like, remember, even without an incident happening in 22, I think, you had Norris stuck there at the start of the Kemmel Straight, and I think Vettel, was on the radio talking about just how egregiously unsafe the situation was to be out there in those conditions. So everyone gets very edgy around this track, and they're going to want to make sure that they can race safely as they should. But things have kind of conspired against Spa in a few ways, and the fact that it is such a rainy track, and just the Spa feels like the tip of the spear for how F1 tires are producing spray and how rain patterns have shifted with climate change. That there's a lot of elements now in play at Spa that make it a really challenging race to put on. I hope we get a great one. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a monstrously boring, hurry up and wait type race.
Well, we'll just have to see. If you would like to support the show and get access to all of our bonus episodes and the official Shift F1 Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Have a good race weekend, everyone. We will see you all next week.
Meow.